There's that feeling in the air when earnings arrive. It was a great week of earnings, a lot of news. We're going to cover them on our weekly summary, and then we're going to get prepared for next week because not only do we have the biggest companies reporting 30% of the S&P 500, but we also have the Fed that is going to decide if they're going to hike rates and by how much. Are you ready to start our weekly summary? Let's go. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for watching this weekly summary. I'm Micha Stocks on our channel called Stock Talk with Micha Stocks, where we talk about stocks every week, same time, same place. There's a weekly summary that we cover, all the news, highlights, everything that happened this week, and get prepared for the week ahead of us. Let's start with the major averages. The Dow Jones was the best performer this week, up 2.16%. S&P, 0.5%. The Russell, up almost 1%, and the Nasdaq is the biggest lagger. You can see from middle of July 19th, the drop. In a second, I'm going to talk about why did that happen. But still, year to date, best performer is the Nasdaq, 35% up. S&P, 18.62. Then we have the Dow and the Russell. Russell already 12%. When we look at the crypto market, Bitcoin is down 1%, Ether is down 1.3%. But year to date, 80% and 57%. The reason for the drop in the Nasdaq, let me jump directly to the reason and then we'll go back. The reason is here. Rebalancing of the Nasdaq 100, what is mainly known as the triple Qs, that rebalancing reduced the percentage, the weighting of Tesla, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft from 51% of that average into 40%. That reduced their weighting, and you can see on a weekly basis on our heat map who are the red stocks: the Microsoft, Google, Meta, Nvidia, AMD, Amazon, Tesla, Apple on the plus less than 1%. So we can see that the rebalancing created that drop in the Nasdaq. Now let's go back to the major sectors. Energy is back in play, up 3.5%, versus communication and consumer discretionary, which had all those stocks that we talked about, that are down 2% by average. Regional banks are up 7.5%. Most of them reported in the last week. Didn't show evidence of a crash. And if all goes well and they're going to get all their bonds to maturity, they're going to survive this current turmoil if that happens. And again, we still have a looming commercial real estate crisis up ahead of us, assuming that there will be a crisis. Home builders are giving away back of their gains, 2.3% down after hitting all-time highs. Most of their stocks, semiconductors as well, dropped 2%, mainly because of Taiwan Semi. You know what? We're going to talk about Taiwan Semi in a second. Reports this week. Let's talk about Taiwan Semi. Reported Thursday before the opening bell and said that they do not see AI being such an important component yet in their production. And two, they reduced their forecast. Doing both these things, of course, created that pressure on semiconductors. What else did we have this week? We had a lot of banks. Nothing major. Consumer is still strong. Banks are putting enough money aside in case there will be a commercial disaster, commercial real estate disaster. So that's how things are. Goldman Sachs, not a good report, not a good earnings report, missed both on the top and the bottom line. But they mentioned that they think we have reached the bottom of M&A and IPO. I want to say deals, but actually no deals. So from here, it might pick up. And if it will pick up, that's a lot of money that Goldman Sachs might see. What else did we have this week? We had Tesla and Netflix. Tesla with a solid report, but a very bad conference call. Instead of focusing on the things that improved, focusing too much on the future, on autonomy. And for people that believe in Tesla's vision, they loved it. For the analysts in Wall Street, a bit less. Netflix missing on the top line, not missing on the bottom line. but not growing as fast as they should. Airlines reported this week, United, American, and we had Delta a week before. All of them hitting both top and bottom line and improving their forecasts. What else did we have this week that was interesting? I'm gonna say that's it. Mainly, those were the highlights for this week. Let's go over the news. So Ford started the week by cutting their electric F-150 Lightning pickups by cutting their price by 10%. And there's a problem by them doing that. I'm not against cutting prices, of course. I'm all for it. But the reasons are a bit strange. Up until cutting the price, Ford kept saying that they do not have a demand problem. They have a lot of demand. They can't just produce enough. But the reason for cutting the price, at least from what they said, is because they're improving their production. But they still have 3 months of wait time. So when you add everything up, something is very strange on the demand side for the Lightning F-150, and it sounds more like a reaction to the Cybertruck being launched probably in the next few months, or actually weeks. Tesla, increasing their factory, starting to expand their Berlin factory to get to a run rate of 1 million cars a year. And at the same time, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, and Mercedes complain that they don't see a recovery. People are not ordering cars. So Tesla is growing very fast. All the rest, not really. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong meeting the House of Democrats, and everyone on the crypto market is urging the SEC to have rules that are clear so they'll know how to operate. The SEC keeps saying, the rules are clear. No one understands the rule. No one knows if there are rules. And I think that was part of Brian Armstrong coming to the Hill. Amazon, after the 2 Prime days, at least from the data that was gathered, apparently they were the best 2 Prime days that the company ever had. Friday, after the closing, AMC shares surged after a judge denied the APE, which is another ticker that they created in order to raise money, and then they want to combine it with AMC. The judge ruled against it, and of course, this provides more value to the stock of AMC, which went up 65%. AT&T during the week dropped after a report by the Wall Street Journal, if I'm not mistaken, of lead in their old cables. AT&T as a stock is a very bad stock. Anyone that owns it probably has seen their chart. Let me just pull the chart and show you AT&T chart. Let's go to Google Finance, and I'll show you the AT&T chart. Ticker is T. When you look at 5 years, even all time, you can see that AT&T's chart, or actually stock price, peaked September 1999. You can see the chart is a very, very bad chart. AT&T is not a good investment. And by saying not a good investment, I mean a bad investment. And it dropped again this week. But a day later, Julia Boorstin from CNBC reports that AT&T updated everyone that first, they don't believe in that report, and second, they're not going to take out any of the wires that had lead inside. Meta and Microsoft team up to distribute new AI software for commercial use. Meta does that with their Llama 2. Llama 2 is their large language model for commercial use, so everyone can use it. And Microsoft, on the other hand, adds GPT capabilities into their Office. For $30 a month subscription, you can have your Office supercharged, which means that everything can be done a lot faster. That's a lot of productivity gain, and probably in the next few quarters, everyone will monitor Microsoft and hopefully their growth in Office products. We will probably hear from Satya Nadella this week because they're reporting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Microsoft Tuesday, Meta. We're going to talk about that in a second. We talked about this. We usually talk about capitulation on our way down when everyone says, I don't want to hold stocks anymore. Well, this is the opposite. Credit Suisse, part of UBS Bank now, capitulated on their S&P year-end forecast. If up to now their year-end forecast was 4,000 for the S&P right now is 4,500, they capitulated and said, you know what? It's not going to be 4,000. It's going to be 4,700. All I have to say is that's a big surprise. It's already almost there. But that's part of capitulation on the way down and on the way up. Carvana, ticker CVNA, saw a huge boost also this week after they got an agreement to reduce their total debt outstanding by $1.2 billion. I would love to get $1.2 billion and then get someone just to erase it. And that's the reason why Carvana stock went up. And of course, after going up almost 800% year to date, they raised equity. And by that, of course, the stock started falling down. Toast made a decision this week, ticker TOST, to remove the 99-cent order processing. This created a lot of pressure on the stock, which went down 20% after 3 days with that decision. Well, apparently, maybe Toast customers loved it, but the stock market hated it. Apple cannot not be part of the GPT revolution, and they're testing their own Apple GPT. If you ask me, they, just like Google, were caught with their pants down. They now are playing catch-up with OpenAI, Microsoft, and others. And remember that Apple has the exposure. They know exactly how many people download a ChatGPT app on their iPhone, and they're seeing the numbers off the charts. They're like, oh my God, if we don't fix that, people are going to stop using our apps and using only ChatGPT. App Store is a huge component of their revenue, and that's why they need to combat with that. But, and I don't have any tab on that, on Friday, I believe and think, they got maybe the best present that they could ask. 94-minute, the last minute of overtime. Soccer, Major League Soccer in the US, Lionel Messi, free kick, scores the winning goal after a 1-1 to 2-1. And why am I mentioning that in relation to Apple? Because Apple holds the rights for the MLS. Now, if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe to games, you can subscribe to the league. That might be one of the biggest presents they got from Lionel Messi. So that's Apple. Tesla, during their call, which wasn't a good earning call, at least for analysts in Wall Street, Elon Musk kind of bragging around the fact that another OEM, a big OEM, is in early discussions of licensing FSD. If and when that happens, this is the biggest game changer for Tesla's valuation because it changes the narrative from being a car company to being a software company, which changes everything around valuations, around how they price things, usage of FSD. And if we take the North America charging system, the chargers that everyone aligned themselves to, and only dream if the same thing would happen with the FSD. FSD is the full self-driving, is the autonomous driving. This might take Tesla stock to a new stratosphere that it's never been to, at least my opinion. And remember that everything you see here, of course, is not financial advice. It's just my opinion, reading clips that I took from the internet. Never listen to people on YouTube and do what they say. You can listen, but don't do what they say. Google is testing a new product that will use their AI, BARD, and other capabilities to produce news. They presented it to the New York Times, to Washington Post, to Wall Street Journal, and who reports that? The New York Times. Okay, when you sit in a meeting and you report it, it might be the right thing. BuzzFeed tried to do that a few months ago, when they fired most of their people. It would be very interesting to see if AI would accelerate the creation of news, hopefully correct news. And these are U.S. Army soldiers that are using Microsoft combat goggles. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because Microsoft just upgraded their goggle capabilities. They have a huge contract with the U.S. Army. And if Microsoft would take these goggles and maybe create a version which is commercial, they'll be able to combat Apple Pro Vision, which everyone's excited on their launch. Talking of Apple Pro Vision goggles, Unity software, the ticker U, that is supposed to be the platform that developers are going to use in order to create games on the platform, on the Pro Vision, just announced the launch of their beta program for the Vision OS. They're building up the process. And Amazon, a very interesting way of paying, just show your hand. And this is not poker. This is real life. Pay by palm. I don't know. It happened this week. I have no good opinion about it. And another thing that happened during the Tesla call, and more related to NVIDIA, when Elon Musk articulated that Tesla is going to spend $1 billion on building Dojo, which is their supercomputer, one of the, I think it's the fifth biggest supercomputer in the world. He also mentioned that he wished, not on the call, on a tweet later, that unfortunately he cannot get everything that he wants from NVIDIA because they can't produce so much. This is in contrary to what Taiwan Semiconductor said, that they don't see excitement around AI. So maybe someone else is producing them. I don't know. But there is a mismatch between Taiwan Semi and what Elon Musk says. And Sergey Brin is back in the office 3 to 4 days a week. He's working alongside the AI team. He's not going to let Google lose their business on a company he created a few decades ago. It's going to be very interesting what's going to come out of Google. And last but not least, the White House met 7 of AI top companies to have a voluntary promise to protect users. Now, I have never heard of businesses that have voluntary promises, but maybe it's a startup. Guess which company that the White House cannot articulate their name, cannot mention their name, cannot say their name, they don't have their letters in their alphabet, is not there from an AI perspective. We talked several times about that company in the video. And by the way, if you know the name of the company that is missing on this list, you can write it in the comments below. And now, let's talk about next week. Next week, 30% of the S&P 500 companies are going to report. 1. 2, FOMC is meeting Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday, we're going to get the 25 basis point rate increase that everyone's expecting. The commentary is the most important thing. Those are the biggest things that are going to happen next week. Companies, you can see their logos here. From Domino's Pizza, that's opening Monday, to Verizon, GM, 3M on Tuesday before the bell. Microsoft, Alphabet, and Snap, Visa on Tuesday after the bell, with Snap being the most exciting one. Not the biggest one, it's just the one that's creating the most excitement around the reaction to their reports. They miss almost every time. They drop by 10, 15, 20, 30%. Maybe this time it's going to be different. Who knows? Wednesday, we're going to hear from AT&T and Boeing and Coca-Cola and others. And Wednesday after the bell, we're going to hear from Meta and Chipotle and ServiceNow and Lam Research. And on Thursday, McDonald's keeps pushing the all-time high, and Royal Caribbean up 100% this year. Southwest, let's see how they report versus other airlines and others. And we'll see, and we'll hear from Enphase, Ford, Intel, Roku on Thursday. Friday, we're going to have the energy companies. We talked about the FOMC. So guess what? It's difficult to see 99.2% of the currently on the CME Fed Watch predict that the rate hike is going to be 25 basis points. I assume it's going to be 25 basis points. Yeah, don't bet against it. I don't think it's wise. And let's end with a chart of the S&P 500. This is a SPY that tracks the S&P 500. You can see that we are no longer on a down trajectory. We are now, our trend is currently going up. What we also see is that we have run up very, very steep and very, very fast. And now there should be a few options. Option number 1 is to consolidate around this area on the 4,500. Option number 2 is to have a correction to around 4,300, maybe even 4,200. This might be not that easy of a correction. If we go down all the way to 4,200, that's a 6.5, 6.7% correction. Add that to the NASDAQ, that might be around a 10% correction on the NASDAQ, which isn't easy to most stocks because some stocks have a higher beta and might get hit harder. But again, in the grand scheme of things, we are now on an uptrend, which might be called a new bull market. So that's where we are this week. it would be fascinating to hear from all the big companies. There will be changes on these weekly summaries, which I'm going to update next week on our weekly summary. That's it for this week. Have a great week. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, nothing here is financial advice. It's only for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm Micha. Stock Talk with Micha Stocks. See you next week. Bye-bye.